Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. The stream went down. That's unfortunate, but we're live. We're back. Hello. Thanks for being here. This is a long time coming. We're gonna do Code Wars Code Katas tonight. So this is officially episode 62. 62. And the last Code Katas episode was from 2 years ago. I mean, we did have some of these episodes that I just committed because I never pushed the code up. But yeah, Code Wars Code Katas. It's been a long time. Thank you all for being here. How do I look? How's my camera? How is the audio and visual? Is it in sync? Is everything all right? I probably could increase my brightness a little bit. Let's take a second to adjust my camera. So, I mean, honestly, like, you see how dark my shirt is? I mean, I kind of like that, but we could technically, like, increase the brightness slightly. Like, there-ish. That's a little more natural? Maybe? Can I get a yes or a no if that's better? Different? It was really bright last time. No, I changed all of the settings. So I adjusted my lighting. I changed where my camera is. You see weird lines? So okay, we're gonna go back. you all are mean. It's fine. We'll go like that. It's fine. I used to have a sharpen filter, but not anymore. Oh, you vote black and white? It's actually, I like the idea of people being able to redeem that. How would I add a black and white filter in OBS? Do you know if that's possible? I was gonna ask Alka, but anybody in the chat, you know if that's good, if that's possible. Luma key? What would the effect filter be called? Color correction, lower saturation. That's, I mean, I kind of like, let's leave it on for just a minute or two and let's say hello to everybody. This is different. Lots of names in the chat that I don't normally see, so thank you all for being here. We're doing a late night stream. Normally, well, not normally. For the past year and a half, every stream has been on a Friday, and this week we changed that up. We had a stream on yesterday and a stream today, and then we're going to have a stream Friday again. But yeah, David's asking what happened to my beard. I shaved it off. I talked about it last time. I went to Comic-Con. Well, not Comic-Con. It's called Fan Expo, but it's like Comic-Con. And I did some cosplays, and so it made sense to shave for the cosplays. I actually ended up wearing a mask because there were so many people there, so it was all for naught. But still, it's nice to have a fresh start because it's been 7 years since I didn't have a mustache. And what's up, Brooks and Greg? Thanks for being here. It's been a while since I've seen you. Josh Knock is asking, can I make a project using GitHub Actions to build a Docker container and upload it to GitHub packages? It's possible to do this, and it would be fun to figure out. So here's what I want you to do. In the chat, type !idea followed by this sentence, and it should pop up on this website. And don't worry, people that have submitted ideas in the past, they're still there. There's just a filter to only show stuff from like the past 2 weeks or so. But yeah, !idea, and then we won't lose it. It was too realistic, the creases in my shirt, yeah. Well. Oh, and thanks for the support. So I'll thank everyone that's done it so far. This is what I would see if I worked in a legacy code base. That's a good one, Brooks. I don't know. I literally just enabled this. So is this Franker Faces or is this Twitch? This chat highlights? I literally just enabled it before I started stream. And I think I kind of like it. It's native. Okay. Oh, does that mean... So I'll be honest, I haven't updated to the latest TMI version yet. Does TMI include this info as well? But yeah, I mean, if that would be interesting if I could add this like similar borders in my chat. Huh. All right, I'm gonna turn the black and white back off. Okay. What's up, Natan? Welcome in. Some of this is available through TMI, first chatter, returning chatter, I think are the keys. Cool. And then I guess I would already know if somebody's a mod or if somebody's a sub. So yeah. Cool. Welcome in, everyone. If you have a Code Wars, Code Kata that you'd like me to solve, feel free to either open up an issue here on this GitHub repo. I think we have a Katas command. Katas. Yeah. So if you go to that GitHub repo, you can open an issue. We have 2. I'll take a look at both of those. I don't think I'm going to do a 3Q today. We're going to ease back into it. The plan right now is to just do an 8, a 7, a 6, and a 5. So we'll start really easy. We'll get gradually harder, but we won't get any harder than a 5. So that's the plan. Feel free to open an issue here. It's not. I'll still take a look. I know there are a lot submitted a long time ago. I'm going to go with the more recently submitted ones if people submit them tonight because you all are here. But yeah. And then this is the website we're going to be using, codewars.com, if you're not familiar with it. They essentially have user-submitted problems that you can practice solving, and so that's what we're going to do. Before we get into that, we will say hello to everyone. But look at these ideas. Thank you all for the ideas. Yeah, I have a lot of ideas about how to improve the video site. So right now, if you go to coding.garden/videos, this is basically just a dump of all the YouTube videos. But there's so much I could do. Somebody had made this suggestion in the past, but I want to get the subtitles, the auto subtitles for every single video, and then make it so you can search across the content of the video. And then eventually, I want to like basically write out every single question that was actually asked in a Q&A, and make it so that if you search, it'll search across questions that I've answered as well. I guess that would also, you'd get that if I were searching the content of the video as well. But regardless, it's cool. It's a cool idea. Would I be able to go over what a job interview would look like for a software engineer? I would be hesitant to, mainly because I actually haven't interviewed a lot in my career. And let's take a quick stretch. Oh, I do not have a beverage. I need to go grab one. Let's say hi to everybody, and then I'll grab a beverage, and then we'll get into solving some katas. And we do have a 7Q submission, so that's likely the one that we're going to do. Maybe we'll do 1 or 2 7s. But if you've never tuned in for this show, typically what I like to do is we'll pick a problem, we'll solve it with pseudocode, then we'll turn that pseudocode into real code, and then we'll come up with like 3 or 4 other ways to solve that same problem. So we really get our minds going and figuring out all different ways to attack certain problems. Like some of the easiest problems we can spend 30 minutes on just talking about different ways to do it. Cool. Let's say hi to everybody. If you would like me to acknowledge you, you can say any one of these things. Hi, hello, hey, yo, cheers, greetings, hi, us up, what's up, morning, afternoon, evening, howdy, good day, coding hiyo, vohiyo, or boga hey. If you say any one of these things, I'll say hi right back to you. So the first person to say hello today was Opti. What's up, Opti? I don't know if you still stream, Opti, but shout out to our friend Opti. Check him out. Last streaming Valorant. I feel like you have streamed code stuff before, though, haven't you, Opti? Regardless, hello. Thank you for being here. What's up, Alka, and Vulture Bike, and Heck, and Ched, and the Real Wardell, and Rural, and I Am a Unicorn, and Palmise, and Main Thigh, and Danielle, and Atomic, and Physique, and Ivo, and Phoenix Rising, and Admiral 1812. What's up, Nathan Schneider? Hello. What's up, Mitzik, and Photon, and Johnny Drama, and Distant Synth, and Default, and Age Monkey, and Inadequate Dev, and hello, TZQ, and Homie Coder. Welcome in, everyone. Lots of names that I don't normally see, so I'm glad to have you here. What's up, Imgood and Bimsicle? Yeah. Oh yeah, and so this is an Aussie friendly stream because I guess like what time is it in Melbourne? Time in Melbourne. It's noon. Yeah, yeah. Lunchtime stream. And what's up, Murdoch and Sirius Hill and Bib? Welcome in. Also, thanks for the supports, Kevin, with the sub when I wasn't streaming. Thanks for that, Kevin. The real Gregarious with the 26 months and Default with the 10 months. Thank you. I kind of miss my mustache, but also it's it's nice to be clean shaven. I don't know. It's 3 a.m. in the UK. Well, it's not a good stream for everywhere in the world, but for some places it is. And then in the US, for most places, it's like late evening. Okay, I'm gonna grab a drink, and then we will get started likely with this one. Cool, and I haven't done it before. If I've done it before, usually this will be like grayed out. And one computer guy with the tier 3. Thank you. He said, "Where's the beard?" It's in the trash at this point. All right, I'll be right back. Hello. All right. Welcome in, FSET. It says perfect hour. That's good. That's good. Um, Check. Does this work? We're drinking a lime bubbly today. Somebody redeemed hydrate. Who was that? Don Corleone. Thank you for that hydrate. Much appreciated. Oh, that reminds me though. I think I want to end the stream today with a bedtime JavaScript reading. So I will not forget to do that. And then also, before we get started coding, I will remind you all that you can check out the schedule. So there's a stream scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. You can see it there. If you want to look at it on an actual calendar that stays updated, you can look at it there. And if you want to add that stream calendar to your calendar, you can use that. And we'll get that into a chat command at some point. But stream scheduled for Friday. The Sunday stream is canceled, but on Saturday or Sunday, I'll be updating the calendar with the stream times for next week, because I'm streaming at least 3 days a week every week now. And what's up, Bob? Thanks for being in here. Cool. We'll come back to the computer dictionary word of the day after we solve some katas. And real quick, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, a long time ago, this would have been 2018? Let's see. Yeah, April of 2018. I did a bedtime JavaScript reading where I read from this book with nice like ambient music in the background and with a like a little bit of echo in my voice. So I'm going to do that again tonight. Audio went out? For everyone? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Something happened with Craig. Yeah. I forgot. Opti thought he was on a call with me. He's like, who's calling my name? Yeah. All right. It is odd. I admit it is odd seeing me clean shaven, but we'll get over it. How's the desync? Is it all right? Seashells by the seashore. Check. Alka says he's already used to it. Seems fine. If it seems fine to you, heck, I'll go with it. Okay, so let's get started. As I mentioned, exclamation mark Katas in the chat, and keep on coding. Thank you for the 100 bits. I am gonna keep on coding. That's the plan. So if you want to check it out on GitHub, all of the past code is there. I'm gonna push up the code today there. This website I don't think has been updated, but you actually can search through katas that I've solved before. You can filter by like specific queue and then go to the episode where I solved that and stuff like that. But regardless, this suggestion comes from IVNGZMN, who I think is inadequate dev in the chat. You can confirm or deny that. But the problem is find count of most frequent item in array. So complete the function to find the count of the most frequent item in an array. You can assume the input is an array of integers. For an empty array, return 0. So for example, we get this, and we're outputting 5, and that's because the number -1 occurs 5 times. Okay, so we can do this, and I'm going to do this. So usually what I like to do is I like to bring these problems down locally, and then, because that way we can solve them in multiple ways. Alka, if you're still here, do you have the link handy to your slug extractor for Code Wars Code Katas? I know you made it a long time ago. But right now the URL is really ugly because of that. Alka code pin Code Wars. There it is. Oh, I found. Look, you got good search engine optimization. Look, it's right here. Okay, let's see if it still works. It still works. Nice. We want this because this is what I'm going to name my JavaScript file. Cool. So let's bring the code in. We've got a function, most frequent item count. Great. And then we can pull in these tests. And actually just turn these tests into console logs. So that way we can see their output. You can copy the slug above the JSON output. Let's try it. Nice. I'll do that next time. Cool. Bring this over here. All right, so I am going to use Quokka.js to run the code inside of my editor. There we go. So we can see right now my function is returning undefined because it does nothing. In this case, I would expect my function to return 2 because -1 occurs twice. And in this case, I would expect it to return 5 because -1 occurs 5 times. And it's not just -1, it's whatever number occurs the most times. So let's think about how we're going to solve this thing. First of all, the solution my mind immediately goes to is to keep track of the number of occurrences of every item inside of the array. So in pseudocode, that would be we need a place to store the number of occurrences. How do you spell occurrences? 1 C? 2 C's. E? Occurrence. I don't think it matters. But we need a place to store the number of occurrences. I'm thinking we do that inside of an object, because that should be the most straightforward. We also could use a map data structure, but I'm just going to use an object. So what I'm thinking is we'll end up with an object called like counts or occurrences. And inside of there, it'll have a key of like 3 and say that occurred 1 time. And then it'll have a key of -1 and say that occurred 2 times. And then if there are other numbers like 4, it could say that occurs 1 time. So basically, we're going to be building up this object as we iterate over. And then after we're done building it up, we just need to pick the key that has the highest count. So that's the plan there. So a place to store the number of occurrences. 2 R's? Occurrences. You got it. So some place to store the number of occurrences, and then we need to calculate those occurrences. So we need to iterate over the collection. And then for each item in that collection, we will say if the item has been seen before, increment the stored count. Alkabot can define words. That's great. Or spell words. Occurrences is spelled occurrences. That's the city in France. Okay, we want occurrences, like how often it occurs. Regardless, so we're looking at each item in the collection. We're iterating, and then if we've seen an item before, we just increment the count that we've already stored. Else, we need to add this item to the number of occurrences variable. Two R's. We spelled it right that time. Frequency. Yeah, frequency. How often it occurs is the frequency. Which I guess is potentially another hard word to define. So if we haven't seen it before, add it to the number of occurrences variable. Great. And set the count to 1, because this would be the first time we see it. And then the second time we see it, we would increment that count. Great. One thing we can do, though, is also have a variable to store the current highest count item. Why am I spelling words so wrong today? Let's take a quick stretch. Yeah, and so Utaic has some code to do it. I'm gonna do it with a regular for loop with all the variables and everything, so it's just like very clear what we're doing. But that's basically what we want to do. Unknown word. How do you spell highest? H-E-I-G-H. I'm spelling it right? So I have this plugin called C-Spell, or is that built in? Yeah, I have Code Spell Checker installed. Oh wait, did I spell it wrong? Oh, I did spell it wrong. Okay, yeah. Hayest, like a horse. Wait. H-I-G-H-E-S-T. Whew, we got it. Thank you, Tiny Fox. We got it. All right, this is my pseudocode. There's one more thing we need to do, though. So we have a variable to store the current highest count item. So, like, let's say we start looking at the array. We're iterating. We haven't seen 3 before, so we add it. We set the count to 1. We'll say, oh, well, we don't have a current highest item yet. So at this point, 3 is the current highest item. So that's what we would store there. And then when we see this next value, we would store it, and its count would be 1. Is that greater than this? It's not, so I guess 3 would stay as the current highest item. I don't know what the problem says to do if 2 items are both the highest. It's likely that that will never be the case. So we'll just stick with the first one that we found. But then when we get to the second number, -1, that increases its count to 2, and we'll see that its count is greater than the 3's count, which is 1, and then we'll store that. So right here, if the count for this item is larger than the current highest count item, replace it. It doesn't matter. I want the highest count, not which one it was. It's true. So like technically, I don't really need to have those two variables, because I could just do the calculations of the counts and then just pick the largest one at the end. But that still is one extra, like one more step that I need to do. Whereas this kind of keeps track of it as I go. Remind me, Rick Zero, after I implement this pseudocode, we'll do it the way where we don't keep track of it. And then after we're done with all of that iteration, we can return the highest count. All right, let's write some actual code. So as I mentioned earlier, the place to store the number of occurrences is going to go inside of an object. And we're going to gradually build this up to say like 3 has a count of 1, and then -1 has a count of 1, and then when we see -1 again, it now has a count of 2. That's basically what we're going to build up dynamically. And then here I'll have the highest, we'll call this current highest. And it'll just start off empty, so that way the first one we find will set to the current highest. This is JavaScript. This is not C, though. Yeah, right at this point, it would not work in a C compiler. I was going to say you could probably use it, but no. C doesn't have like object literals like this. I don't know. I don't think C has the const keyword either. But we're in JavaScript. So now we need to iterate over the collection. This is the collection we're iterating over. It's an array. So we're going to have ourselves a loop. And that will start at 0, so we're going to start at the beginning of the array. We're going to go while I is less than the length of that array, and on each iteration we increment by 1. Great, so this is our loop where we can look at each item. I'm going to put the item into a variable, so I'll say like item is collection at I. So I technically could just use this collection bracket I in the rest of this code, but by putting it in a variable makes it a little bit easier to keep track of in the code, and it's I don't have to keep typing brackets everywhere. So this represents the current item in the array that we're looking at. Now we need this code if the item has been seen before. So I can do if counts bracket item. Now there are a lot of ways to check if an object has a particular property. This is the easiest, and for this code, it's going to work just fine. I'll say in the real world, in bigger code bases, you probably wouldn't want to do this, but I'm not going to get into why you wouldn't want to do this. But just know that this will either return the element at that property or return undefined. And if it returns undefined, then it's going to go into the else. But if it doesn't return undefined, then we can say plus equals 1. So that means it was already in there, increment the count by 1. Now, else, I guess I don't really need this else bracket here. I can do this, and then this goes in here. So if we've seen it before, just increment the count. If we haven't seen it before, then we need to put it into the object. The way to do that is just like that. So we'll say counts at that item. On the first iteration, item is going to be 3. So counts at property 3 is equal to 1. And then when the loop goes back around, we haven't seen -1, so counts at property -1 is equal to 1. And then when we go around again, counts at -1 does exist because we stored it the previous time, and then we just increment the count. Great. Yeah, there are way shorter ways of doing it. We're going to do it in a very verbose way first, and then we'll shorten it up. Okay, so at this point, we're keeping track of all the counts, and let's actually just let's see what we get here. So, like in the the case of running it on this array, we build up this object where property 3 has a value of 1 and property -1 has a value of 2. And then when we run it on this larger array down here, we get this object where you see the property name and the value, and you can see that -1 has a value of 5. So that is calculating the overall counts. So that's good. We've at least done that much. But we want to keep track of which one is the highest so that we can return it when we're done. So we'll say if the count for this item is larger than the highest count, replace it. So I'll say if current highest doesn't exist, or current highest dot count is less than counts at item, then we're going to set this equal to an object that has a count. Actually, I don't even need to do that. I just need a I don't need to store an object. I can just store a number like that. And at this point, we can just return it. So let's see, we get the right answer. Yeah, there are multiple ways to get it. This kind of just does it all in one go. And so this was our solution. I'm actually going to just put it here without all the comments and then review what we did. And then we're going to solve it like 4 other ways and show multiple other ways of doing many of the different things in this solution. Okay, so we have a place to keep track of the counts of everything in the array, and we're keeping track of which one is currently the highest. We then iterate over the array for each item in that array. If we have seen it before, increment the count. If we haven't seen it before, set the count to 1, because that's the first time we've seen it. Then, if the count that we just calculated, so if this was like the second occurrence of -1, counts at -1 would be 2 at this point. So if 2 is greater than what our current highest item is, set it here. I guess the other thing I could do is so what I checked right here is if it doesn't have a value or it's less than, we could just initialize this to 0. If we initialize that to 0, then that simplifies our if statement there. If the highest is 0, the method will return undefined. Don't think so. Let's see. We can test it. Oh, I see what you mean. I see. If the highest number of occurrences is 0, meaning if we pass it an empty array, yeah, you're absolutely right. This would have returned undefined. But I don't think the problem even describes what would happen if it. It does. For an empty array, return 0. But we're doing that now. Because our initial current highest is 0. If the array is empty, this for loop doesn't even run, and then we return 0. So yeah, thank you for that, Zalbi. And what's up, Lakshman? Thanks for being here. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Cool. All right, let me read what people said while I was doing that. And then we'll solve it another way. A Schwartzian transform. Yeah, well, thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I'll talk about in a second why you don't want to do this. I mean, okay, I will, because I know some of you are interested. Yeah. Yeah, so King is mentioning one way of doing this if statement here. Let's actually show that really quick. And before I do that, let me know if you have any questions about this solution. Yeah, and Shad, this is exactly the scenario where I would use has own property, or in the new ES 2022, we can use has own. But yeah, that's the scenario where you would want to use that. Yeah, this plugin is called Quaka. There you go. Yeah, if you click that link, that's the plugin that I'm using. Finder the Icewing, feel free to submit it. I'll take a look at it. Yeah, and we could use math.max to get the highest one, instead of keeping track of it, we could basically find all of the counts, and then when we're done, get the maximum value in that object. Yeah. Hadouken, what's up? Yeah. Yeah, Ryan. And hello, Ryan. Thanks for being here. But yes, in the real world, usually you would want like test coverage. Basically, you would want to test this function on every possible input that you might get so that you can account for, oh, what happens if it's an empty array? What happens if the array only has negative numbers in it? What happens if it gets past an array that has things that are not numbers inside of it? In the real world, you would want to account for most of those types of scenarios. In this scenario, we don't. We can assume that the array is full of numbers. I think they did say that the array can be empty, but we don't have to worry about checking to make sure they're numbers and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, welcome in, A Dash of Mexican. I'm hoping, so actually when we're done with this one, we're actually going to go back and solve an even easier one. So I'm hoping that the easier one will be a bit easier for you to follow. And Murdoch, thank you for the 500 bits. I would say you probably have to be coding for like at least a month to really wrap your mind around what's happening here. Some people might get it in like a week or two, but that's just some people. This is tricky. Like, we're dealing with a lot of stuff here. I think especially dealing with object access and dynamic property setting and getting. This is tricky stuff that takes some getting used to. I would say if you've been coding for a month, you probably can do loops, but this object stuff is tricky. And thanks for the bits, Murdoch. You're too kind. Yeah. Yeah, well, you can use reflect, and then you can use has-own. I think I'll prefer to use has-own, but I'll show all the ways real quick. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing. You could use a map here, so I'll show that as well. Yeah, and it even could take you longer than a month, and that's okay too. I was just mentioning that. I'll go ahead and click this just so we have it, but if it's the 5 hue, that's probably going to be the last one we do today. Yeah, that'll be the last one we do today. That's going to be tricky. And what's up, Electrothermal? Thanks for being here. Cool. And the Lorax, thanks for dropping in. You should go to sleep, though. Go to sleep. Okay, inadequate dev. I know you're the one that suggested this one. Do you have any questions about how I did this? And Tux, thank you for the bits. Because if not, we're going to get weird with it. We're going to show you some other ways that you can solve this. And hello, Not Bluebees. Thanks for being here. The prompt for this one was, given an array of numbers, what is the frequency of the item that occurs the most number of times? I'm laughing because I was like tripping over my words, but that's it. So basically, given an array of numbers, what number occurs the most? How many times does it occur? Not what number, but how many times does the most occurring thing occur? So in this case, -1 occurs twice, so it's 2. -1 occurs 5 times in this one, so the result is 5. Okay, so this little piece of code right here is actually like a pretty common thing that we do in JavaScript. I will say, first of all, let me show you the different ways that we can check for if a property exists in an object. Because this is one way to do it, but in the real world, you wouldn't want to do that because item could end up being like an internal property, like a constructor. Obviously, in this code, we're not going to run into that because they're only passing numbers. But if somehow you were dealing with strings that like had this word in there, then technically counts does have this property because it exists on objects itself. Also, other things like value of or toString, these are all properties on the object prototype So this technically would return true because it would not return true. It would be truthy because those things exist inside of here. So that's why you actually want to avoid this bracket notation for simple property checks. The newest and easiest way to do it is by using this has own property like this. And it's not going to work because I need to be running, I think, at least node version 16 or something like that. But let me close out of this and then see if I can use the latest version. Yeah, you're actually right about that, Lala Laredo. If the value of that property was like a falsy value like 0, then actually it would return false. It works in our scenario because our counts object never has 0 inside of it. It always starts off at 1. But yeah, that's another scenario where you would need to be very particular about what you used. So yeah, I actually can't use has own here because I think Quokka is just using an older version of Node. But in the latest version of Node, you can actually do this. But because we don't have the latest version of Node, at least right now, we do it like this. You say object.prototype.hasownProperty.call on counts, and we're asking it if it has the item property. So in the real world, this is how we would do it. And we do this so often that we typically have a helper method that does it. Now, technically, you could do counts.hasownProperty because this does exist on the object itself. Bob says, disgusting. So you could, yeah, and so we get the right answer still. But the issue with calling this property directly is similar to like someone injecting like a weird property here, because it's possible that someone overrode the has own property method, and now you're calling the wrong one, and this might actually be returning true when it's false. So that is why you would use this one, because it calls the has own property from the actual object itself. I'm going to stop talking about this piece because it's actually, for a beginner, it's really not that relevant. I would say if you are working in real world code right now, if you're working in the latest and greatest JavaScript, I would use this one, object.hasown. Sorry, I actually did this wrong. It's object.hasown and then counts an item. Yeah, okay, so that does work. I did it wrong. Did somebody catch that? Nobody caught it. But this is actually how you do that. And we still get the right answer. So in 2022, this is how we do it. If you're in an older JavaScript engine, you would do it this way. If you can trust that has own property wasn't overridden, you can do it this way. But yeah, that's all the different ways. I would say these days we do it. Oh, somebody caught it? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Zubaid. It's actually like that. Make a null prototype object. Yeah. I have worked with D3. And Turtle Monkey, it's been so long. Are you here? Thank you for the 7-month resub. I don't know if I missed any of these, but keep on coding. Thanks for the bits. Razor1, thanks for the 26 months. Murdoch for the bits. Thank you, Tux, for the bits. And Turtle Monkey, thank you for the resub. Yeah, and so Not Blue Beast mentioned earlier, you're using a hash table, right? That's basically what we're using this object as. And so if you're used to other programming languages, they have like a hash map or a dictionary. That's basically what we're using this JavaScript object as, which is why next I'm going to show you that we can use an actual map data structure instead of an object, because it actually has a built-in has method, so we don't have to do any weird stuff like this. I'll show that. Couldn't I just say plus equal since undefined is 0? Well, undefined isn't 0, but you're right. So there is another way to write this piece. I'll show that before I show using a map. Any resources I would recommend for improving algorithms or katas? I mean, I would just recommend going to Code Wars and just solving them. I'll give you some quick tips on how to find ones that you should solve. First of all, if you're new to the site, 8Q is actually the easiest. So the numbers are in reverse order. 1 is the hardest and 8 is the easiest, and it just goes up from there. I typically sort by most completed. So because these are user-submitted problems, a lot of them are like worded badly. A lot of them maybe are missing test cases. So if you organize by like most completed or most positive feedback, you'll find the ones that have good descriptions and you're more likely you're going to be able to solve them. And then make sure they're approved, because if they're beta, if they're beta, then they may be harder to solve, and they may not have good descriptions. So that's a good way of finding ones to solve. People have mentioned it before, but there's a thing called exorcism, and it has a bunch of test suites in various programming languages for a bunch of different problems. Is this it? I feel like it used to be... Okay, maybe they changed... Yeah, they changed their site, I guess. It used to be just like a GitHub repo that you could clone down with a bunch of tests in it. I don't know, but I would recommend that. Murdoch, I pick 1. You've done this before, and then you just give me a bunch of bits, so I pick 1. Yeah, I mean, I don't really even want to get into what prototype means, because we got to get more into just solving the problem itself. And what's up, IGN? We're doing code katas. Thank you for that posture check, Christian. If anyone overwrites has own property, you punch them in the nose. For sure. But what if you link to a library and that library's code overwrites it? That's what you might have to look out for. Oh yeah, I saw the bun is in beta. It seems really cool, but it's like the same scenario as when Dino released version 1.0. Actually, it's even earlier than Dino 1.0. It's like when Dino first came out. It's brand new. It still has a long way to go. A lot of things to implement, a lot of bugs to fix. But overall, the idea seems really cool, and it's almost like a better Dino in a way. But they still have a lot of work to do. And Murdoch, thank you for the bits. Thank you for the 100 bits. This isn't that new, but it is using brown switches instead of red switches. Okay, let's talk about this if statement here. So ultimately what this is doing is saying if that counts object does not have this item, set it to 1. But if it does have the item, increment it by 1. We can actually do that in a single line of code. We can do something like this. And Jifferam, thank you for the 22 months. It's been so long. I was just taken aback. I'm happy to be streaming at other times because I see so many faces that I haven't seen in a very long time. But you're working on OSCP, fighting with DNS Python. Gotta love libraries that are deprecated. Yeah, well, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Okay, but let's do it in one line. So we'll say we're gonna set the property on the object to be this or 0 plus 1. So this whole if statement goes away and it gets turned into this. So we can say, and then really, in this case, you're just assuming that it's going to be a number there. But what this says is, first we evaluate this expression. And this expression is either going to be the value inside of the object for that given property or 0. So if that item isn't in there, it's 0. And then we add 1 to that. So if it was already there, add 1, and then store it back into the object. So this whole if statement can go away, and we can just turn it into that. If we wanted to be really particular about it, we could, like, I guess, embed a ternary here that's with that has own thing. If object has own then use that, otherwise 0. So we could have like an embedded ternary. I mean, this would be the proper way to do it because you're using has own, but I actually have this in code bases all over the place. Yeah. Oh, is there a current kata command? Well, I totally forgot about that. It's been so long since we've done this. Sweet. That is some juicy JS. You want to see some even juicier JS? So I'll comment that out. You can do either one of these. All right. Now, instead of using an object, there's an even better data structure. So let me show that one. There's an even better data structure, and that is called a map. And a map lets you map from one thing to another thing, and that's basically what we were doing in those objects. We were mapping from the value or like the property name to the number of occurrences, and so that's what we're going to do here. So we're in this map, we're going to insert the key, which is the collection item, and then the value is going to be the count. Can you get that domain, juicy.js? But now let's use that map. So the way a map works is it actually has methods built into it, like has and add. So I can actually here, I can say counts.add or counts.set. So I'm going to set item to be counts.get item +1. Like this. And then I don't even have to worry about the has own stuff. And now instead of using a bracket notation, I can say counts.get. Counts.get like that. So a map data structure is much more fit for purpose in this scenario, instead of using an object and then like using bracket notation like that, because it works in the same way. So if I hover over, or if we log out counts here, you can see that it's a map from 3 to 1 because there was 1 occurrence, and then -1 to 2 because there were 2 occurrences of -1. And then similarly, we see the map here with that second array. And Photon, thank you for that Prime sub. Yeah. What's up, Vilchaz? We're doing some Code Wars code katas. Okay. So that's great. Let's now, instead of keeping track of the current highest as we go, we can just get it at the end. So if we look at this without that, we could do something like this. So let's say we just build up the counts map first, and then we can just look at all the values in the map and choose the highest one. So if we did math.max, we could pass in all of the values of the map. And so basically, instead of keeping track of the current highest one as we go, we basically just build up the map, and then at the end of it all, we say, all right, let's just pick the highest value inside of that map. Now, yeah, I just introduced a bunch of, I just opened a can of worms, because like, what's that and what's that? Basically, values from a map is an iterator, meaning we can't really just get back the values of the map directly, we actually have to iterate to get them back. So for instance, if I actually log this out, you can see that it doesn't give me back an array of all the values in the map. It gives me back an iterator. And so because it's an iterator, I can use the spread operator. So these three dots right here are the spread operator. It says spread this into this array. So this is actually an array right here. Let's call this count values, just so you can see what's really happening here. So first, we're creating an array with all of the values. And really, the only way to do that is with the spread operator, or we would have to use a for loop over the iterator to get all of the values out of it. I don't think you can, funny boy. Maybe you can. Let's try it. Oh, it works. It works. Okay, never mind then. You definitely can. That is good to know. So you actually don't need to even put it into an array, because this is actually the... it's not the spread operator, it's the rest operator. And so you do need to spread. So watch, if I don't do this, I get back not a number. Like that, and honestly, I do like showing both, because you can actually see the difference between the two dots. These actually mean two different things. If you see a ... inside of an array or inside of an object, that's the spread operator, because you're spreading that object or array or that iterator into this array, or you're spreading it into an object. We got a 12-month sub. Who? Oh, Photon, thanks for the 8 months. What are you talking about? What you talking about, Bob? So yeah, this is the spread operator. And then this is different. So first of all, let's look up math.max on MDN. Oh, you had a 12-month sub? It didn't show up. It didn't show up. And then let's talk about the rest operator. So math.max accepts multiple arguments. So the only way to call math.max is by passing in each individual value. So like, for instance, you would have to say math.max of 2, 5, 42, 9, 8, and 9, right? So I'm invoking this function with 5 arguments. The rest parameter syntax, cool. So math.max, you can't pass in an array. You have to pass in individual values. So that's where the rest operator comes in. When you do the ... here, that says take this iterator or take this array of values and invoke this function with each of those values as an argument to that function. So when I spread it, behind the scenes, what's happening is it's actually invoking it with each of the values of the array as an argument to the function. So this is the spread operator, because it's calling a function with multiple arguments behind the scenes. Before this existed, we had to use the apply keyword. So you could do math.max dot, I think apply? And then yeah, look at that. Okay, so because the rest operator was introduced in ECMAScript 2015, and so really it's just syntactic sugar for this, because the apply keyword allows you to do just this. It allows you to pass an array of values as individual arguments to a function. I think I could technically pass in null here. Yeah, that still works. Before spread, we had to rub 2 sticks together really quickly. Yeah, so this is spread because it's taking a list or an iterator and then invoking a function with multiple arguments. Oh, you're totally right, Alka. So this is it at a basic level, but you technically could do this. You could say 3 and spread all of that and that. And so you're kind of like combining arguments themselves with spread. But yeah. Would I recommend using for each, apply, or spread? I would say these days, if you're working in a modern code base, you use the spread operator. There really isn't a reason. I mean, there are some scenarios where the spread operator won't work for what you're trying to do, and you would need to use apply. But if the spread operator works, just use the spread operator. In terms of like when would you use a for loop over a for each, it's really up to style preference. For each looks cleaner, but some people it's a bit harder for them to follow. Yeah. Oh yeah, so Macaroni Pizza Pie is talking about like time impact. Let's talk about like what's happening here. So in our very first solution, we iterate over the collection one time, right? We iterate over it once, and once we're done with that single iteration, we have an answer. So if we're talking about like runtime complexity, and even like space complexity, this one uses less memory and is less complex based on the input because it only has to do one iteration. Now, in the scenario where we start doing this, so we have a loop, right? So that's one iteration. But then when that iteration is done, we now have a second iteration to get the values and, well, really just to call math.max. But this spread operator behind the scenes isn't free because we do need to iterate over the values in order to invoke this function with them. Now, this is a different size than the input. So this complexity would be like m plus n. So n is the length of the input, and then m would be the length of the number of unique items. Well, not the length, well, m would be the number of unique items. So it's complexity m plus n, whereas this is just in complexity because I just iterate once and I'm done. And that's time complexity. If we're talking about space, this also uses an object to keep track of things behind the scenes. So you do have that space complexity because you're creating that object behind the scenes. And we share that complexity in this solution because we have the map. But that's what we mean by it's a little bit more complex. Basically, there's more iteration that needs to happen. Now, this isn't that bad because it's not like nested iteration. It's like one iteration and then a second iteration. Yeah. I'm wondering the same thing because it is literally 9 p.m. George W. Bush. But I think I'm just happy to be streaming because I haven't streamed at night on a Wednesday in like a year and a half. So I'm happy to be back. And also I'm passionate about this code. Heck yeah. Actually, let's write it one more way. So somebody mentioned a for each. We can do that here. So instead of a regular old for loop, we could do a for each. Like this. I mean, this makes it look real nice. Look at that. Oh, it's 6 a.m. there, Mark. Well, thanks for being here. And thank you, Eddie. I appreciate you all. Thanks for hanging out. You all are what makes the coding garden happen, and I appreciate it. But look what I just did there. So instead of having to do a for loop, because this is an array, it has this for each function built in, and I can pass it a function that gets called on every element in the array. And so that cleans it up a little bit. Now, if you're new to coding and you're like, oh yeah, that looks great, but I could have never written that just off the top of my head, it is totally fine to write code that looks like this. It's totally fine to do that. Like, it doesn't have to look pretty. If it solves the problem, that's great. You just have to get used to solving the problem, and then eventually you'll get good at like writing shorter solutions from the get-go. But yeah. Yeah, and so that's the last thing I'm going to do is turn it into a reduce, which is what Brooks is asking about. So we're using for each, but ultimately what we're doing is we are taking this array of one thing and turning it into another thing, and that other thing being the occurrences, the most frequent occurrence count. And so that is a perfect use case for a reduce. So I can take this, and instead of a for each, I'll do a reduce. The reduce passes the accumulator as the first argument. In this case, counts is our accumulator because counts is the thing that we're building up. And we don't have a variable for it. We actually just specify it right there. Because what this says is this accumulator is going to start off as a map, and then on each iteration, we're going to get each item in the array, but also the current accumulator. And so because I return the accumulator on every iteration, I can now use it and do the stuff there. However, this reduce gets stored in a variable, so I could say like result there, and then do like result.values. So that works, but we actually could do it all in one go. We could say math.max spread this whole thing dot values. I'm now contemplating like why do I even show you this? Because I feel like if you're a beginner, you're completely disheartened because you're like, I barely understood this, and then now you just turn that into 3 lines, and like there's this weird reduce stuff. I don't know. Just know that this is possible. If I had to pick a preferred solution, it would probably be it'd probably be this one. So like one step above, because it has the for each. You would definitely mark a pull request with that in it for review. Yeah, so like if you come across this, you're like, this is terse. It's very compacted, and the reason I talk about this is because let's say you're working on a team. Let's say you write code like this, and then you commit it to the code base, and then a month later, someone else on your team comes across this code. It's going to take them longer to understand what this is doing than this. For most programmers, really, like really just looking at this and understanding what the code does, your brain can kind of deduce what's happening here quicker than it can deduce what's happening here. And even it might even be quicker to deduce what's happening there. The term a lot of people use is reason about, like, is this code easy to reason about? I don't like that term because it's very, what's the word? Subjective, I guess. I don't know, but yeah. And that's a good point, Brooks, saying a bigger part of learning is knowing that something exists. I agree. Yeah, like knowing that these kind of things are out there and like that's what you have to look forward to. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So Stoutfella is asking, is there something built in that can test time and space complexity, or is it something we have to be familiar with? In my experience, let me in my experience, it's mainly just being familiar with big O notation, which is a computer science thing for time complexity. And there might be things out there that can tell you what the complexity of a thing is, but I haven't used them. And I think a tool like that would help you as a dev, but honestly, this big O notation and time and space complexity are mainly talked about in interviews. So when you solve a problem, the interviewer wants you to explain what the time and space complexity is of your solution, and what are the trade-offs and stuff like that. So usually it's just being able to talk about it, not necessarily just being able to have it given to you for free by a tool. Yeah. Python removed reduce from the standard library, claiming it's too hard to read. That's hilarious. The thing is, so reduce, I guess it's been in, I think, wasn't it in ES5? Array reduce. Yeah, look, you could use array reduce back in 2011. Back in 2008. So it's been in JavaScript for a while, but I feel like everyone wanting to use it all the time is a more recent trend. Maybe within the past 5 years or so, probably because of React. I'm just putting that out there, but probably because of like this trend towards like functional programming and stuff like that. So many JavaScript developers want to do stuff with Reduce, and it really is harder to read. It really is. Yeah. I need to learn the terse way for job security, and that's exactly it. Like, if you're the only person on your team that can understand this, you kind of have a little bit of job security. Yeah, and if you do want to test like how long it takes a function to run, you can use console.time. There's also some like built-in perf tools, but that's a little bit different than analyzing the big O complexity, because it's not just about how long it takes to run, it's how the runtime grows based on the size of the input, which is different. Yeah. Only time I worried about Big O was in game dev. Yeah, it's when you're dealing with like a lot of data or, yeah, a lot of data really. No worries, Georgia Dolio. Thanks for being here. All right, that's it for this one. Let's submit it and make sure I did it right. I'm going to submit this one. Test. Attempt. I'm not accounting for if it's an empty array. So I'll say if collection.length doesn't exist, return 0. Yeah, so math.max with no arguments returned infinity. That was the issue. I mean, I could do... I actually don't even know how I would do that here, because... Actually, I could do it like this. I could say spread that into an array that has 0 inside of it. And then I don't have to do this. Because now, if the object was, or if the map was empty, I now have an array that only has 0 inside of it. I don't need the double spread? Oh, yeah, you're totally right. Okay, that actually makes it a little bit nicer. You can see I don't actually use the spread operator that much. Yeah, so this is, well, it varies, Pierman. I would say rewind the stream if you can, because I talked about, did I not save the one with the variable in it? Thank you, Georgia Dolio. I did this. So this is the spread operator. This is the rest operator. But if you rewind the stream, I explained the difference between the two. Okay, we submitted it. We're an hour and a half into stream, so that just gives you a taste of how long we can spend on even like a 7 queue. But we talked about a lot. We went from like basic for loops. We talked about like object checking for properties. We talked about the map data structure, which is fun. We talked about spread and rest. We showed reduce. Good times. All right. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to read you a dictionary, a definition from the Webster's Pocket Computer Dictionary from 1997. It is for now, stout fella. I think I like this time slot on Wednesdays, so I'll probably do it again next Wednesday. But if you keep an eye on the schedule, I'll on Saturday, I'm going to update the stream schedule for next week. Cool. And the other, if you're new to Code Wars, this is another cool thing. After you submit your own solution, you can actually see how other people did it. And so this solution did it in a very similar way to what I did. Let's see. This solution used Lodash. That's cheating. I mean, I guess it's not cheating, but I forgot that you can get access to Lodash on Code Wars. But Lodash has this nice built-in count by function, which basically does what we did on the object there. So Lodash is a library with a ton of built-in methods. Methods that you can use on arrays and objects. Tons and tons of them. Lodash is still somewhat popular, but before JavaScript had map, filter, reduce, Lodash was what people used for that when they needed to do those types of things because they didn't exist in JavaScript. But then JavaScript got those things added, and so you see Lodash used less and less. So like this count by built-in function is basically what we did to build up this counts object, but that's just a built-in function from Lodash. And then values gives you the values of that object, very similar to how when we used a map, we got the values iterator. You technically could do a similar thing when we were using the object. For an object, you could do object dot values, and that will give you the values of the object. And then that's interesting. So they have this built-in max function that exists for arrays. So, or I guess for collections. So they can just chain that. Instead of having to like pass it into max, they can just chain it and then get the value of it. So all in one go. But just know, even though this looks fun, like it's just a bunch of method calls, behind the scenes, the code has to look something like what we wrote. So behind the scenes, there is a thing building up the counts. Behind the scenes, there is a thing that's finding the max value. Like all of that's still happening. It's just hidden behind these function calls. Cool. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is an interesting solution because it actually has a worse time complexity. Let's just talk about this really quick. So whenever you see a nested for loop, that's a bad sign. That's basically it's the number of iterations is length squared. So it's the length times length. And this solution still works, and especially for a simple problem like this, it's gonna work just fine because we're not passing arrays that are really, really long. But basically the way this solution worked was for every value in the array, it calculated the number of occurrences of that value one at a time. So if we see like this example input, we see 3. Now we look at every other value in the array to see how many 3s we have. And we keep track of that. Then we see this next value, and we say, all right, let's look at all the other values in the array to see how many occurrences of that we have. And then we're done, and then we do the same thing here. But you can imagine the longer the array is, the more and more iteration that has to happen. So this solution is fine, especially for like a more beginner problem, but just know that this is where things can get a little bit trickier in terms of complexity because it's in times in, it's in squared iterations. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's keep moving. We can see what people have solved, but I'll say solved in episode 62. Thanks. So we just had the 3 queue that was submitted today. I'm going to take a quick 4-minute break. And then when I come back, I am going to pick an 8 queue. I'm actually going to pick a really really easy one. We won't spend as long. We'll maybe spend like 20 minutes on it, but we'll pick an easier one and try to solve a few ways. Okay, I guess I'll leave you with a YouTube video. Do it in Python? That could be interesting. Maybe I will. People have asked this before, Charisma. So do I prefer Code Wars over Leak Code? They are two very different things. So like Leak Code definitely lends itself more towards interview prep. It's specifically like algorithms, computer science style interview prep. And at least from what I've seen, the problems get really hard really fast. Code Wars has a ton of like actually easy problems and categorized as easy problems. So Code Wars is a lot better for complete beginners. So people that are just trying to even get started with solving coding problems. There's a much easier ramp up on Code Wars than what I've seen on Leak Code. And what's up, Heatech? I look different because I have no facial hair. I shaved off my mustache and my beard. Yeah. What's up, Namaste Geek? I'll leave you. Yeah, I mean, wind feels weird on my face, or like air conditioning feels weird on my face. That's another thing Dr. Zug is saying. So I like Code Wars to help me learn syntax of new languages. So on Code Wars, they are categorized. And so if you filter by things like basic language features or like arrays or strings, a lot of the more beginner problems introduce you to things like the split method or the reverse method or different things like that. Whereas with Leak Code, you're kind of expected to already know those kinds of things. Yeah. All right. I will leave you with this video.
Hello, friend.
And actually, I'm gonna leave you hanging. I did say we were gonna do the Webster's Pocket Computer Dictionary word of the day. We'll do that when I come back, so stick around for that. I'll leave you with this video while I take a quick break. Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. In this video, I'm going to talk about HTTP status code. So we have this comment here from Lifecats that says, do you know about the 418 HTTP code? I do, but I also want to tell you all about it for anybody that doesn't know. So first of all, what's an HTTP status code? So let's look on Wikipedia, HTTP status code. I think will that find it? Hey, look at this. There's a Wikipedia page. So HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's basically how the web works. Jellywoot! 1,000 bits. Thank you so much. So it's how the web works. Whenever you go to a website, like if I go to duckduckgo.com, that is an HTTP GET request to retrieve this web page and load it in my browser. And there are basically HTTP servers can use statuses to tell the client, the thing making the request, if things were successful or not. So in this scenario, we requested the homepage. It's most likely a 200 status code, meaning that it was good. It also could be like a 301 or a 302, which is a redirect, or a 304, which is that it should be served from the cache. But I'll show you this. If you right-click the page and click Inspect Element, that's going to bring up the DevTools. And then if you click on Network, you can actually watch all of the network requests that happen. So if I refresh this page, we can see the very first request. If we scroll all the way to the top, the very first request is responded with a 200 status code because the DuckDuckGo server is like, hey, everything's okay. Here's the response. However, if you do something that it cannot find, you're going to get a different status code. Who can tell me in the chat, what is the status code for something that is not found? First one? Who's going to be the first one? 404, Jive off, you got it. So you might have heard this before, like 404 not found. That's the status code that the server responds with. So let's see what we get here. That actually just searches. It's probably really hard to get a 404. That literally just made a search. So like technically, that was not a 404. That was a response from the server. Let's go to Discord app.com/whack. 404. But if we actually look at the network tab, you're going to see that, look at this. Whoa, it's too much, but this. Status code 404 not found. So status codes are what servers use to communicate some certain statuses. Now, back to status code 418. Status code 418 was actually an April Fool's joke from the 90s. Let's just search DuckDuckGo for it. 418 status code. Thank you, Sir Rob. 418, I'm a teapot. So in the let's see when it was. Let's see what the actual year was. 418, 1998. So this was actually an April Fool's joke that actually got put into an RFC, which is like a specification for status codes. And the 418 status code is I'm a teapot. And the reason a client would receive this status code is if they make an HTTP request to an internet-connected teapot, if they make a request asking it to brew coffee. That teapot will respond, I'm a teapot, I cannot brew coffee, so it will respond with a 418 status code. It's actually an April Fool's joke, but it's still there. And it's actually in the specification, which is funny. But I'll also show you, there are so many different status codes. Like 404 not found is really common. 200 is success. 401 unauthorized. All of these are different status codes that you can use. I don't know if do they have 420 on here? So 420, yeah. So on Twitter used to do this. Twitter doesn't do this anymore, but the standard response would be 429 if you made too many requests to a server. That's like a rate limit. But for a while, they actually responded with status code 420 that was, whoa, dude, enhance your calm. Stop making so many requests. That's also like a funny little joke. Yeah, and then I'll leave you with some nice things. So there's http.cat. This is a really fun website where you can just request any status code and you get a picture of a cat. So if you do like /418, you're going to get a cat in a teapot. Or if you do 404, you'll get a cat that is not found. Or if you do 401, you'll get an unauthorized cat, cannot enter. So HTTP cat is cool. And then there's HTTP status, I think. If it's not, somebody should make that. Yeah, it is. In this is actually a service you can use for generating status codes. So if you're like testing an HTTP client and you need to see a 200 status code, you could make a request here and it actually responds with the 200 status code. So like if I do this, we should see status code 200, great. But if I do like 418, look at this, status code 418. What's the difference between 401 and 403? So 401 is you are not authorized. Hey, Jellywoot, thank you for those bits. But so it means that you're making a request that you don't have access to. Forbidden is like you technically potentially have access to other things, but you don't have access to this one thing that you were trying to request. The thing about status codes is it's really up to the server to set those status codes, and if you're writing an HTTP server, you get to decide what status codes you want to respond with. There's probably a Stack Overflow out there that tells you what's the better status code to respond with. Oh well, that's it. That's this video on HTTP status codes. Thank you all for participating in that hype train, and thank you all for watching and being here. Everyone say bye, YouTube. We can wave. Bye, YouTube. Bye. See you later. Hello? Hello? Hi. Thanks, Chad. Welcome back to you all. What's up, Limeouts? I need to do this. Great. We're back. Yes. So we're now going to do the Webster's Pocket Computer Dictionary word of the day. This is a computer dictionary from the year 1997. This CJ is not pre-recorded, and you can tell because I read your real live chat. There we go. Sequel Gordster says page 122. Here we go. All right, I now need a random number between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A random number between 1 and 9. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. This is a good one. So the definition is mod, M-O-D, but it says C modulo. So we have to go to modulo, which is on the same page. A program command that returns the remainder of a division. That's actually, we could probably find a problem where we need to use mod. Something that has to do with like odds and evens. Yeah, like this one. Given a number n, return the number of positive odd numbers below n. Easy. Yeah, okay. So but yeah, the computer definition of the day is modulo, a program command that returns the remainder of a division. So it's your job to use the word modulo in a sentence before the end of stream. Cool. That was fun. Now let's solve this problem, which actually is easier than the last one we did, or it should be anyways. It doesn't really involve arrays, it just involves iteration. I'm a modulus encoding card. Not quite, Chad, but I think I'll allow it. What's up, Nart? The word was mod. Oh, I guess you're right. Not modulus. Well. Modulo exists. It's pretty good. What's up, Lucas? Welcome in. Okay, let's keep on moving. If you're just joining us, we are solving Code Wars code katas today. If you go to codewars.com, there are various problems of varying difficulty, and we're solving them. If you do !current kata, you can get a link to the one that I'm solving. Feel free to solve it yourself. And then all the other info about code katas is at those links. But here we go. We're going to train on this one. This should be fairly easy, but again, we'll probably solve it in multiple ways. So given a number n, return the number of positive odd numbers below n. Easy. I don't know why they said easy, but is it n divided by 2 plus 1? Well, we're going to solve it using iteration. So given a number, how many odd numbers are below that number? Okay. We need to iterate up to n. So we need a loop that goes from 0 or from 1 all the way up to n. Iterate from 1 up to n. We also need a place to store the odd count. So we'll initialize that to 0. So it starts off as 0. We iterate from 1 up to the number, and we'll say if the current number is odd, increment the odd count. And then when all that's said and done, we return the odd count. Cool. So if you're following along at home, at this point, pause the stream or mute the stream and try to solve it just using this pseudocode. And then when you're done, come back and you can take a look at my solution. Yeah. Ours is saying, you must be a better programmer than me. I'm only rank 6. Rank has nothing to do with how good I am. It's just how many I've solved. But yeah. Okay, let's do it. We need a place to store the odd count initialized to 0. So I'm going to say odd count, set that equal to 0. And I'm using let because we're going to be modifying that variable. The next time we find an odd number, we're going to increment by 1. All right, iterate from 1 up to the number in. So I need a for loop. We start off at 1. We go while that iterator is less than in. And then we increment by 1 on each iteration. And then we say if the current number is odd. So this is where we can use the modulus operator. So if the current number divided by 2 does not equal 0, that's how we know the number is odd, because the remainder of the division by 2, if the remainder of the division by 2 is 0, then it's an even number. So if it's not 0, then we know that it's an odd number. So this is how we're using the modulus operator right there. And if it is odd, then we increment the odd count like that. And after it's all done, we return the odd count. And in this case, we've done it. So the number of odd numbers less than 15 is 7, and the number of odd numbers less than 15,023 is 7,511. Now, there's only 2 options. Why not just 1? Yeah, you're right. So you could do not equal 0, or you can say if the remainder is 1. If we did this interesting note, the number of even numbers is equal to the number of odd numbers below a given number. You actually don't even need it at all, because the number of odd numbers is equal to the number of even numbers. However, I will say, if you're new to programming, this is good practice for doing loops. Like, you technically could just solve this with maths. Like, let's see what this divided by 2 is. Yeah, so like technically I think you could just do this. You could say math dot floor of n divided by 2. So floor drops the decimal place. But it's no fun to just do it with math. Iterate up by half and then multiply by 2. Yeah. So what Mark is saying is, like, you technically could just have a loop that increments by 2, because every other number technically is odd. Yeah, well, that's what we did. It's Coder Life. We divided by 2, dropped the decimal, and that seems to do it. Okay, this was a pretty easy one, but like I said, if you're new to programming, I would focus on solving it with a loop rather than focusing on just trying to figure out the math, because really this is kind of just practice of, can you do loops? Can you check for if things are even or odd? Yeah. And that's true. It's Coder's Life. If we were checking for prime numbers, you absolutely would need to iterate, because there's no mathematical formula that we know of, at least without a quantum computer that can figure out prime numbers like that. So we could shorten this. I'm gonna leave it as is for now. All right, let's move on to a slightly harder problem. We're gonna find a 6Q problem to solve. Yeah, if we knew prime numbers, then basically all modern digital infrastructure would be hacked. Yeah. Yes, very, very hackable if we could figure out prime numbers easily. Okay. We're going to do a 6Q. I'm just going to go with the first one that was recommended to you. Yeah, I'm going to take a look at this 5Q after we solve this 6Q. I already don't like it. It's dealing with shapes. Rectangle into squares. The drawing below gives an idea of how to cut a given true rectangle into squares. True, meaning that the two dimensions are different. I don't want to do this. I don't want. I mean, if you forced me to, I would. But because this is my stream, I don't want to do it. All right, let's see what this one is. Help the bookseller. If I don't like this one, I'll take a look at the one that you submitted, Mark. A bookseller has lots of books classified in 26 categories, labeled A, B, through Z. Each book has a code C of 3, 4, or 5 or more characters. The first character of a code is a capital letter which defines the book category. In the bookseller's stock list, each code C is followed by a space and by a positive integer in greater than 0, which indicates the quantity of books of this code in stock. Okay, for example, an extract of a stock list could be this. So it's like a list where it has the code and then the quantity. Code space quantity. Code space quantity. You'll be given a stock list and a list of categories in capital letters. Okay. Your task is to find all of the books L with codes belonging to each category of M and to sum their quantity according to each category. I like this one. Let's do this one. And then if we have time, maybe we'll do another 6 one. Maybe we'll do this one. But I like this because this is more like real world problems, because like let's say you were scraping data from somewhere or you had a bunch of data from like CSVs or something like that. This is the kind of code you might write in the real world to like aggregate and combine that data together to make it more usable. So I like this problem. We're going to do it. Let's see what this one is. I don't know if we'll need to use a regular expression. We might just have to split on a space. I solved this one a long time ago. Actually, if you go to the code Katas app and search for valid parentheses, I solved this in episode 16. We're actually on episode 62. This was my solution. And then another solution, and then another solution, and then another solution, and then another solution. So I solved it. The thing is, I avoided that solution for a very long, that kata for a very long time, but we eventually did it. Okay, so you'll be given a stock list with all of the categories. Your task is to find all of the books with those codes belonging to each category. Okay. A, B, C, and W are the categories. Then we have the total. If L or M are empty, return the string as empty. Okay. We can do this. And I have a feeling, because we're in JavaScript, we can return an object, but it actually might want us to return a string that's formatted in that way. We'll see. Let's go. What's up, Scrimpy? What do you mean? Who did you dirty? did we Oh, did you land like right next to it or something like that? I didn't see that you dropped. Okay, so it looks like the output that they want us to give for this problem is a formatted string with all of the categories, and it looks like the categories in alphabetical order. So we can do that. Or I guess not the categories in alphabetical order, whatever categories were given to us as input. Oh, you landed on the corner. I see. Okay. We're gonna write out the pseudocode. I have to think about it for a second. What is the hexagon kata? Was that one that I've solved in the past? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, or the one I've solved, or was it this rectangle one? This one. Thank you, Notlandia. Much appreciated. Is this what you're doing? The one that took me 3 streams? I don't even remember. Let's see if it's on here, though. I mean, if it took me 3 streams, then it's got to be like a 3 or a 1. Yeah, I don't know. It was a 5? I don't know. I would say look on that site. I don't know specifically what you're talking about. Okay. Here's what I think we need to do. We need to keep track of the quantities for all of the categories. So a place to keep track of the quantities for each category. And the variable list of cat is going to give us all of the categories. So what we can do is we can first add all of these categories to this variable or to this place that we keep track and initialize their quantity to 0. So initialize, we'll say like iterate over categories, set category count to 0. So we'll end up with an object that has these as properties, and then the values are 0. Then we need to iterate over the list of items. We then need to look, and actually we'll split it on space. So we'll say split current item on space to get the code and quantity. So we're going to get the code and quantity after splitting it. We will increase quantity at given category based on first letter. So we'll look at this. We'll look at the first letter. We'll know that that's category A. And then because we've split it on a space, we have 200. So we'll increment A's count by 200. Yeah. I'm seeing here, though, that our list has some things like category C and category D that is not in the category list. So we actually should check for that before we increase their quantity to get the code and quantity. We'll say category to get the category code and quantity. If the category code exists, then we'll increase it. So we'll first check to see, oh, do we even have category C? And if we don't, we won't. Now, at this point, we've calculated all of the total quantities. And so at this point, we would need to construct this string. And there's going to be multiple ways to do it. I would say because we're already using an object and the object is going to have keys and values, I would say, let's do this. We're going to iterate over the keys plus values of the quantities variable. And we need a place to store the output string. So a place to store how we're going to calculate this. And then we're going to iterate over each key and value. And then we will append the formatted key plus value to the output string. With a trailing dash. With the trailing dash if this is not the last key value, because the last key value, we don't want to put a trailing dash on the end of it. Cool. Could we do it in one iteration? It would not really, because if there are, in this case, there are multiple B's, right? So let's say we're iterating over this once. When we come across this B, we would increase the count to 250. And like if we're generating an output string, we could do that. And then when we increase the count, we could generate the output string again. So you could technically like regenerate the output string on like every single item, but you would still have to iterate over all of the categories. So I think it makes sense to like iterate over the items and then iterate over the stored categories one more time. That's what makes the most sense to me. Okay, did we update the current kata? Sorry if we didn't. There's that. So at this point, if you want to solve this problem, you can take my pseudocode and try to solve it. I would pause the stream or mute the stream, and then come back later on after you've solved it. Now I am going to take this pseudocode and attempt to solve it. But yeah. Yeah, and Woodlegs asked about Q. Q is just the difficulty. So this is a 6Q, meaning it's like medium to intermediate difficulty. 8Q would be the easiest. 1Q is the hardest. I've solved only 2 1Qs in my Code Wars career, and they both took me multiple days to solve. So, all right, let's solve it. So a place to keep track of the quantities for each category. I'm going to use a map for that. So we'll say categories is a new map. We then need to iterate over the categories and set the count to 0. So we can just say list of cat for each category. We then will put it into the map. So we'll say categories dot set this given category, and its current quantity starts off as 0. Now that we have a map of all the categories, we can iterate over the items. I'll use a for each for this. So I'll just say list of art dot for each art. Split the current item on a space to get the code and quantity. So I can say parts is art dot split on a space. You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and use destructuring. When I'm done solving the problem, you can ask me like what does this mean? But this is gonna give us the code and quantity. And Itakito, thank you very much for that Prime sub. Yeah, afterwards I'll tell you what this does. So we get the code and the quantity. We'll say if categories. Oh, and then we need the category, which is going to be the first letter in code. So category is just the first letter in the input codes. And so now that we have the category, we can say if categories has this category, we will then increase it. So we'll say categories dot set. We'll say categories dot get this category +1. So inside of the map, increase this given category by 1. Oh no, by the quantity. And we need to turn that quantity into a number because at this point it's actually a string. So get the current count from categories. If we haven't seen it before, it's 0. And then we add the quantity of the given item that we're looking at. So at this point, our categories, so in the first scenario where we just have the 2 categories A and B, we can see that the count for A is 200 and the count for B is 1140, because B would be 250 plus 890, and then we just ignore C and D. And then for this last one, C would be 20 plus 50, B would be 25 plus 89, and then A and W are both 0. So if we look at this, A is 0, W is 0. Great. So we've calculated the counts, we're keeping track of the categories, and at this point, we now need to create that output string. So we'll say let output equal an empty string. We now need to iterate over the categories. So I could do a for in. Or do I want for of? I'm going to look it up. For of creates a loop iterating over iterable objects. It invokes a custom iteration with statements to be executed for the value of each distinct property of the object. I think I want for of. And this gives me the category and the quantity. Just to be sure, let's log out category and quantity. Yeah. So this categories object has the category and the count, and when we're using this for of loop, we get access on the entries. We get access to the key and the value. So in this case, we get the category A, quantity 200, category B, quantity 1140. Okay, so we have those two. Great. We now need to append it to the output. So I can say output plus equals a nice little formatted string. It's going to have parentheses. It's going to have the category. Let's take a quick stretch. I'm getting tired. I'm losing steam. I've been live for 2 hours at this point. Okay, so category followed by a space, followed by a colon, followed by quantity. Can I trust the ordering of the map? I thought about that, and yes, I can. So if we look at the order that the input list is in, and then we look at the order that the categories come back in, we can see that they're in the right order. So like A, B, and then A, B, C, W. And so I believe the order that they're put into the map is how we're going to get them out. So yeah, I think we can trust that. So we're creating a string that has the category, a space, a colon, a space, the quantity, and then a closing parentheses. And then if this is not the last key and value, put a dash on the end. Can I get access to the index in a for of loop? Yeah, and so Wazel is asking about this line here. This is actually destructuring of a string. So the code here is a string, and then I'm actually destructuring the first letter from that string. So this is actually string destructuring. So we can't get the index in a for of, but I think I know what I'm going to use, and it's pretty clever. So I know that this input list of categories is in the right order. So what I can do is I could say if the category does not equal the last category. How do I get the last category? Like this. List of categories at -1. Look, we found a use for the new at method. So grab the last category, and really I can just put it in a variable. Let's just say last category. And so if the category does not equal the last category, we're going to append a dash to it like that. And when it's all said and done, we return the output. We've done it. We've done it. Cool. Just put it into an array and join by a dash. Yeah, that's another way to do it. So instead of building up a string, we could just push each one of these into an array, and then do .join on this. But that is an extra iteration, because you've got one iteration to get each one, and then you've got another iteration for the join. Whereas this does it all in one go. You do have this extra check that happens on every time. Will this pass the test? We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. It shows the input can be either arrays or objects. I think they do that whenever we're dealing with multiple languages, because other languages define their arrays or their lists with curly braces. So I think their description is just saying, like, it depends on what language you're using. I think we can pretty much assume that they are arrays for our input. Yeah. Oh, the at method is in ES 2022. It's pretty new. I talked about it last stream, which is why it's pretty relevant. But this is useful because in the past, you'd have to do something like this. List of cat.length -1. But if you use the at method, you can just do -1 like that. Cool. Code Wars only supports Node 14? Okay, so then this is going to break. But let's watch it break, and then I'll change it to the code that I just showed you. And thank you, Homie Coder, who says, I dig CJ pseudocode. All right, I'm going to remove all my pseudocode just so we can see it without it. And then I'll let you ask questions about my solution, and we can look at potentially other ways of doing this. I mean, there's so much code in this one that, like, there's like each individual problem we solved along the way might have a different way of doing it. Overall, I kind of like what I've done so far, but yeah. Any other use case for at you can think of? If you don't want to use bracket notation, really. This was the biggest use case that stood out to me. It was like, oh yeah, we do that all the time, like array.length -1. All right, I'm going to throw this into Code Wars, see if I can at least get all of the regular tests to pass. List of cat.at is not a function. So yeah, they're using Node version, I guess even if I chose Node 14, which I can't. Why can't I? Oh well. It's not supported in that either. So I can't do this at thingy, but we'll do the bracket notation. So list of cat dot length -1. It broke. let's see why it broke. I'm gonna log the inputs. It could be because they're empty arrays. I see. Okay, I think it's because they're empty. Like the list of art is empty. Yeah, the list of art is an empty array. So we need to account for that. So we just say if list of art.length is not a thing, return an empty string. There we go. There we go. Okay. So what questions do you have about this code? I think I will show what's happening right here. And this is actually destructuring of a string. So code is going to be equal to each one of these. And then I'm using destructuring to just pull off the first letter. To see that in action, you can do something like this. Code is a bar, and then well, the category is code, like this. But if I log cat, this is literally just the letter A. But so code is an iterable. It's a string with a bunch of characters. Similar to array destructuring, I could put a bunch of variables here. Bat, kitten, cool. And then each one of these corresponds to a value in the iterable. So cat is A, dog is B, frog is A, bat is R, and then kitten is undefined, like that. Yeah, so it's exactly like doing string bracket 0. It's just a fancy way of doing that. And some would argue string bracket 0 is more readable than this. Yeah. Is there anything else tricky I did in here? This is destructuring as well, but it's destructuring entries, because entries is going to return an array with the key and the value from the map for each one. And so I'm destructuring that key and value. And thank you, Natlandia. I mean, I try my best. I can do these pretty quick. I think like what slows me down is making sure I explain everything so that people can understand. For those that don't want to have that code variable to destructure it, you can destructure inline too. I guess you could, couldn't you? Like this. Does that work? That's crazy. That's even weirder. Wow. But yeah, you're totally right, because then we could do something like dog, frog, log. So this basically would destructure from that one. Wow. Thanks for that tip, Nart. And Kurosaki is asking, why no TypeScript? Because we're just solving problems. TypeScript is good for when you're working on teams, when you're working in a large code base. TypeScript would not be very useful when solving algorithm problems like this. It would really just get in the way. And you're right. Technically, I am leveraging TypeScript. Like, whenever I hover over these variables, like, we are actually getting some autocomplete. I'm just not getting TypeScript errors that I'm not declaring types. Because it actually, let's see, like, it knows that categories is a map. And then, like, I actually do get autocomplete here. Because it knows that categories is a map. So I'm using TypeScript. Cool. Any other questions about what I did here? If not, we're going to solve our last kata of the night. A 5Q. It's going to get even harder. I think it does this by default. Hey, what's up, Coding Garden fan? Thanks for being here. All right, we'll keep moving. Wow. Yeah, it doesn't know what these params are, but they're like array of strings. Yeah, and you're welcome, Kurosaki. And I was being a little bit what's the word? A little bit rude. I didn't mean to be rude, but really just because like we're not dealing with like components, we're not dealing with like APIs and interfaces. It's really just basic data structure. So it's arrays, strings, and then like loops and stuff like that, which is why, I mean, you could use TypeScript. You could, like, I could come in here and say this is going to be a map of string to number, but I think it's just a little bit extra for what we're trying to do. Yeah. You can find my theme if you do !theme in the chat. Yeah, there it is. You can get a link to it. But actually, if you look at the frequently asked questions, or no, if you look at, you could go to the frequently asked questions, which will take you here. But if you look here, I am using just black. But there's some other ones I've used in the past. But I use this one. And then if you look at my VS Code settings, there's a couple of things that change some of the colors. Here, these are some of just a few of the colors that I change. Other than that, it's that stock theme. Yeah. Oh, did not Landy ask a question? For of is the same as for in. Oh, it's different. Yeah, and I actually had to look it up whenever I did it. I was like, do I want for of or do I want for in here? For in, I believe, would just give us like, what? I don't even know if that would work here. What would that give us? So I can see here, because this is white, this code doesn't even run. So there are no iterable properties on it, I guess. Something like that. Yeah, but for of gives me the actual values of the items that I'm iterating over. For in is for the key or index. For of is the element. Yeah. Okay. Let's do a final submit on this. We can see what solutions other people have done. Let's take a quick stretch. Oh, wow. I've unlocked a new privilege. I have over 2,000 honor. That's pretty good. I know there are some people even in the Coding Garden clan that have like 20,000 3 times kata voting power. Wow. Okay. Let's see how they did it. So they have, this is basically their map. It's a place to store the counts. If it's empty, return an empty string. Calculate the counts. They did exactly what I did for the most part. They did this join thing that we talked about, except they did it with smaller variable names, and their code is harder to read. So, but they did it in exactly the same way. Yeah, I mean, these are all variations of the same solution. Like, this is using a reduce to, oh, I don't like that. So so this, okay, here is the this is hidden complexity. So we have a map, and then inside of that map we have a reduce. But anytime you see a map or a reduce or a filter or a for each, all of those are just for loops. They're just loops. And so this is a loop inside of a loop. And so basically what they're doing is they are iterating over the list of art elements every single time to get the total quantity for each given category. Now, this is convenient because they're basically just calculating the categories one at a time, whereas our solution does one pass to calculate all the categories and then builds the output string, whereas they basically come across category A, they then iterate over this and find all the A's. Okay, now they look at B, and they iterate over this and find all the B's. Okay, then they look at C, they iterate over this and find all the C's. And so, like delta time is saying, that's in times in. But as a beginner, I would say be careful of nesting these higher order methods, because it can look fine on the surface, but you really are actually doing like a nested for loop. So this isn't in squared, but it is in times m, because it's list of cat length times list of art length. Yeah, and so they, in here, this is not implicit type coercion. This is actually the unary plus operator. So in my code, I explicitly pass that string into the number constructor, but another way to do this is to just put the plus sign on it. That's the unary plus, and that actually turns it into a number as well. I prefer to use the number constructor. Or if you know that it's not going to have decimal places, you could use parse int or parse float. Parse float if you know it's going to have decimal places. Cool. All right. Let's look at this. I'll save this one for next time. I forgot who suggested it, the backspaces in string. But if you submit it to the GitHub repo, code Katas, I'll take a look at it next Wednesday. So just open it as an issue here. How do you join the Code Wars clan? I think you just set your clan to Coding Garden. But yeah, look at Julian. Julian has 28,000 honor. It's crazy. But I think if you go into your profile, you can just literally put coding space garden and you'll get added to this list. Okay, let's look at this one. This will be the last one of the day. If I think it's doable in the next 30 minutes, I'll give a crack at it. If not, I'll try to find an easier 5Q. But this was suggested by someone in the chat. So here we go. K primes. A natural number is called K prime if it has exactly K prime factors counted with multiplicity. For example, 2 is K equals 2 for 4, 6, 9, 10, 14, 15, 21, and 22, etc. K equals 3 for 8, 12, 18, 20, 27, 28, and 30. So this is the number of prime factors is prime, and that means it's K prime. A natural number is thus prime if and only if it is 1 prime. Task: complete the function count K primes, which is given parameters K start and end, and returns an array of the K primes between start and end. Okay, so we get our start, we get our end, and we get the number 5, which is 5k. So between the number 500 and 600, these are all of the numbers that have k equal to 5. Okay. I think I can figure it out. Why is there also a puzzle? Given a positive integer, find the total number of solutions of the equation. Why do they give us 2 tasks? I've never seen that before. I think I can solve this one. I just have to figure out how to get the number of how to get the prime factors of a number. Which could be tricky. Don't know. How do I view my solution to the backspace one? I just solved it a bit ago, but I don't want to solve it again. Oh, I think if you just go to your profile, you can see your most recently solved Katas. Yeah. And what's up, Aspartame? Welcome in. I think this is too complex for my brain at 10:30 p.m. Let me find another 5Q. We're gonna go 5Q. Sort by most completed, and the status is, or the progress is katas I have not trained on. Perimeter of squares in a rectangle? Is this more shape stuff? I don't like the shape stuff. The drawing shows 6 squares, the sides of which have lengths 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8. It's easy to see that the sum of perimeters of these squares is... Okay. No, I don't want to do that. Gap in primes. Prime numbers are not regularly spaced. For example, from 2 to 3, the gap is 1. From 3 to 5, the gap is 2. From 7 to 11, it is 4. Between 2 and 50, we have the following pairs of 2 gap primes. Cool. A prime gap length of n is a run of n minus 1 consecutive composite numbers between 2 successive primes. All right, I'm going to look at one more 5Q, and if it makes me feel the same way, we're going to go back and do one more 6Q. I'm just not mentally prepared for this level of complexity this late at night. All right, this one is called Josephus Survivor. In this kata, you have to correctly return who is the survivor, the last element of a Josephus permutation. What is a Josephus permutation? Basically, you have to assume that n people are put into a circle and that they are eliminated in steps of k elements like this. So the Josephus Survivor is a number file video? Maybe we'll watch it. Josephus Survivor of 7 and 3 means 7 people in a circle. 1 every 3 is eliminated until 1 remains. So there's this. The third one gets removed. The 6th one gets removed. Oh, and then it starts counting from the back. Then the 2 gets removed. Then the 7 gets removed. And then the 5. And then it goes 1, 2, 3. So the 1 gets removed, and then the 4. Wow. So I think I can do this one. So this is a good place to use modulo. Yeah, so basically we have to, and that's where modulus is also useful when we're not looking at odds or even numbers. We can use modulus on the length of the array to basically keep wrapping around the array, which is where it gets tricky, right? Because after 6 gets removed, yeah, 3 gets removed and then 6. So that was easy because it was the third one. But now we have to wrap around the array and we go 7, 1, 2 gets removed. So, yeah. Yeah. All right. Use the solution to the other kata to check your function. Does that mean I need to solve this one? I don't want to solve 2 katas. Oh, I've done it before. All right. Because I've done it before, I'll look up my old solution. Ooh. Josephus? Well, maybe I haven't. Maybe I just clicked on it once and I never actually solved it. Oh well. Let's do it. Okay. So, in is the number of people. So we would need, I think if we're going to use an array as an example and then gradually remove the items from the array, we could generate an array with the numbers from 1 up to that number. I think I'm going to do that. So, and I'm not going to write the pseudocode like I did in the past solutions. I'm just going to talk about it out loud and then try to turn that into code. So, my thought is we take in the variable in, and then we create an array of that length, and that represents all of the people. Then we're going to loop and remove every third element. I guess the size of the array changes, so that's going to be tricky. But I am just going to start coding. And Jedediah is asking, do I ever get bored of programming or burnt out? I definitely get burnt out. And I don't really get bored of programming, though. I get bored of problems that I don't like. but as long as I like the stuff that I'm programming, then I don't really get burned out. You can backseat, but I would say give me a chance to get some code on the page. But then you're more than welcome to provide hints. What do you mean, Ched? What's that about? What's going on? Okay, so we need to create an array of the given length. I'm going to use array.from. And we can pass in a thing that has a length, and then we get this map function with the index, and we want to return index plus 1. So the people is going to look like this. Oh, you get bored with writing auth. I see. So, for example, when in is 7, we've created an array of length 7 with all the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When in is 11, we've created an array with all the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So this gets tricky. I think like we could do it with recursion. I know Brooks mentioned recursion a little bit ago. I think we can do it without it though, because we'll just remove that element from the array. So we'll say like while people.length is greater than 1. Now we need to remove the person at a given index. So we'll say people.splice. The index is going to be k minus 1. And we need to remove one item. And then if we think about, so in the sample input, when k is 3, we remove 3. And then the next index is actually 5. So this would have been index 2. And then this would have been index 5. But once you've removed 1, you would remove that from the count. So I think we need to keep track of like total removed. So that starts off as 0. We increment by 1 each time we remove someone. And then the current index we got to keep track of. So that starts off as k. So we say current index plus equals k. And then it's current index minus 1 minus the total removed. Did I do it? Do I have an infinite loop? I think I have an infinite loop. And VultureBike is saying k times iteration count incremented minus 1. I guess I would be doing that because I'm incrementing it by k. And then I need to mod this. I think that's the issue. I need to mod this by the length. So people.length. Yeah, VultureBike's got it. So is it people.length mod that? So I always forget the order. So like let's say the length is 20 and our current value is 21. We want opposite. So we want that mod the length. Yeah. We figured it out. Okay, so people.length. All right, instead of running Quokka, I'm just going to run this in my console. And we sort of did it. So we got it wrong on this one. We got it right when it's 100. And we got it right when it was 300. Oh. Am I doing that right, though? So, yeah, so 7, the first in is the number of people, and then k is what it gets incremented by. Okay. So, this piece here is wrong. What VultureBike was saying is you use the old value, then increment. And then it's k times iteration count. Okay. We got it right when in the first scenario, but then we got it wrong with this one. And what's up? I am parched. I'm trying to solve a fairly complex coding problem. For some people, it might not be that complex, but basically, we're calculating the Josephus Survivor. You can see the coding problem here. What's the second minus total for? So because we're removing it from the array, like the index would have been 5 for the next thing that we remove, but now that this is gone, we have to actually decrease it by 1 because the next time the length of the array has changed, so its indice has changed. That's why I was doing that. I don't know if that's right. Using an array or list to compute the number of the survivor may be too slow. Well, they're telling us right there that it might be too slow. I think I just closed chat. Okay, let's really dig into this number here. And I'm actually going to debug this line by line. Okay. Dive in. So, in this scenario, in is 11 and k is 19. So we create the people array. Now, people is an array with the values 1 through 11 because there are 11 people. And then the first index should just be 18. Is it? No, it's 6. Well, because we did mod people. I'm going to do this. Index 17. So we don't subtract 1? Okay. I think I get what you're saying, Vulture Bike. Is like I was trying to reuse this total removed variable, but I actually need just a count or an index variable that starts at 0. -1 minus count. It's still wrong in the first scenario, though. Let's debug this first one again. The seven people. So first index should be 2, and that'll be the value 3 that gets removed. So if we look at people, it looks like that, and then we're about to remove number 3. So now if we look at people, it doesn't have 3. The next one we want to remove is 6, so our index should be calculated to be 4. So I actually have these two variables. I think I have them switched around, but so yeah, we want this index to be 4, but this index is 4, so that's good. So it's going to remove the 6. Awesome. Now if we look at it, it doesn't have 6. If we look at their example, the next thing that should be removed is the 2. So the calculated index the next time around should be 1. Total removed. Well, it's not total removed. This is the iteration. And it's 6. But 6 mod 5 is 1. So that's right. Yeah, 1. So it should remove the 2. Great. And then we want it to remove the 7, so next index should be 3. And that's 8 mod 4. That's our mod is not right. So right now it's 1, 4, 5, and 7. What do we remove? Yeah, we didn't remove the 7. Okay, so this modulus doesn't work after a certain length. NFG Codex is saying, in game dev, when you want to cull data from a triangle list, it's common to start at the end of the collection and iterate backwards. And when you delete the indices, don't change for items earlier in the collection. So what we could do is, instead of removing it, we could just set it to 0. But then that wouldn't work either, because we can't include that indice whenever we're counting. Do I need to keep track of the original? I think I need to keep track of the original length. Right? No. Because we're splicing it, we need to know the current length. Is the index we're calculating in relation to the original length? Maybe? I don't know. Anyone in chat, do you have any ideas about what I could be doing wrong, or what I need to, which piece I should look at? If you do current kata, you can see the see the problem. That is the problem we're trying to solve. We could do the negative infinity thing, but we got to move the pointer when we hit it inevitably. Yeah, I mean, what I can think of is instead of trying to do like this mod math, is we literally iterate. Literally iterate through the array, counting up. Only increase count when you do not remove an element. Well, we remove an element on every iteration. Like we have to, because that's the whole deal is each iteration one person gets removed from the group. Okay, I'm gonna give this a try without trying to do the mod stuff. I'm just literally going to iterate, and then we'll go from there. So create the array. I don't know if I need to keep track of the count or not. You do need to keep track of the removed index. Oh, did I not update the right kata link? Cool. What's up, Eric? I mainly just code in JavaScript. I do know C#. I've coded in a lot of other languages, but C# is my main language. Why k times count in the loop? Because so let's say k starts off as 3. So on the first iteration, the index is 3 minus 1. On the second iteration, it would be 6 minus 1. And on the third iteration, it would be 9 minus 1. So I was doing times count because each iteration, it's that much further. And the Beat League, thanks for that raid. Welcome in. What were you working on? Focus music. Cool. Appreciate you. Thanks for bringing your friends over. Tim says, the index effectively increments by k minus 1 each time. No need to account for the number of removed items. The modulo can be used separately if the index is out of bounds. Well, that sounds easy. I mean, that sounds like I can just change my existing solution. So the index increments by k minus 1 each time. So if we say index equals k, like that. That didn't do it. Index should start at k minus 1. Oh, yeah. That makes sense because it's 0 indexed. Okay. I'm just trying to think through like the first scenario. So we remove index 3, and then if 3 was still in the array, we would have removed index 6, but now it's index 5 because we removed index 3. So this works for 3 of the scenarios. It doesn't work for this, and it doesn't work for this. Do we have to start by adding k first elements of the array to the end of the array so we can circle around correctly? I don't think so. So if you look at the problem description, they're basically, if they were using an array to solve this, they would be looping around to the beginning. And that's what modulus is trying to get us. Yeah. I don't know, Vimtim, do you have any direct suggestions of how I can update my code? So I generate the array of people. We start at where the index is k minus 1. And then on each iteration, we are incrementing the index by k minus 1. But this is why it's also not, it's incremented by k minus 1, but it's also minus the number of people we've removed so far, I thought. Hmm. Mm. That's what I was thinking, Alex, but the tricky part is when we start to wrap back around, they're still in the array, so we have to know to skip over them. Remove all possible elements in one pass if you're not looping over the array. I mean, I guess I could calculate all the indices first. Up to length n minus 1. Hmm. I'm going to keep this. I guess I was keeping track of that here. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to try here, is just create the array of indices just to debug what would have happened. Make sure we're getting the right indices. So in the case of 7, the indice is 2, so that's right. And then the indice 0, 1, 2, 3 is 4, so that's wrong. So the indice is 2, and then the indice is 4. Here the indice should be 1, but we get 6. And what's up, Ozma? It has been a long time. Thanks for being here. You've caught me in a moment. This problem is really hard, and I honestly don't feel like figuring it out. But maybe I can push through it. Also, like, it's past my bedtime. How about we save it for next time? I know it's a anticlimactic ending, but I just can't think. Yeah, and Vulturebike is saying you don't have your offset to track removed entries anymore. I thought that's what count would be. Don't know. Ooh. Yeah, I'm still alive. Yeah. To resolve the problem, stop your PC. Yeah, I'm gonna give up. Also, why do we have all these negative numbers? Oh, because K is 1. I mean, that's why I thought this was like index. I don't know. My mind was going there, macaroni pizza pie. Like, basically, like, replace that element with 0 and then increment from there. But, yeah, okay, I'm going to give that one go. and then I will end the stream if I can't figure that out. But yeah, here's the thought. So while people dot while removed is less than n-1. So we need to remove n-1 people from the array. On each iteration, we remove 1, so we'll increment it by 1. The index is going to be it starts off as k, and then each time we increment the index by k. Here we're going to say people at that index now equals 0. And that's the index mod people.length. Let's log people on each iteration. Now, this is not going to work, so we'll turn people where the person is not equal to 0. This isn't going to work because right here we need to adjust the index. So we add k to the index, but then we would find that value, and if it's 0, we need to change the index to be the first value that's not 0. I think that's how we would fix this. Let's see what we get with this. Assignment to a constant variable. So here we removed the 0, so that's wrong. It would need to be k minus 1. Yeah, so we removed that one, and then because that was removed, the next one we remove is actually 6, not 5. So do we add one? So that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. Cool. But I think what we do is if the index, so if people at that index is 0, then we need to increment it. So while people is 0. Well, I didn't do it. Okay, I'm going to give up there. Galaxy is asking what time it's for me. It's 11:20 p.m. my time, nighttime. 23:19. But I think like we were close there, but my thought was, okay, we figure out what the next index should be, and then we look in the array, and if that given index is a 0, find the next one that's not a 0, and that's the one that we do remove. I don't speak Spanish. No, sorry, Diego. All right, I'm gonna end it there. Next time we'll revisit this, and we'll do our best to get it right. That's been it for Code Katas. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We did a lot today. We actually started off with the find the count of the most frequent items in an array. We solved it like 7 different ways. We then jumped into counting odd numbers below a given value. That one was way easier. This was a fun data manipulation one. And then we got into this, which totally stumped me. Are we going to do JavaScript bedtime story? No, I have to go. I took way too long on this last one. I think I know though. From now on, I'll probably limit the code kata streams to like 3 katas, just to make sure that I'm not streaming for like 3-4 hours. But next Wednesday we'll do a bedtime JavaScript reading. Cool. And if you do exclamation mark katas in the chat, I'm gonna push all of these up so you can see my solutions. And if you have any suggestions for katas that I should take a look at, you can open up a issue on the repo. So if you go here, go to issues, open up an issue, and then next time I will take a look at any of the submissions. There's that. All right, let's see if I forgot anything. Check out the schedule. The next stream is scheduled for Friday, I believe at 2 p.m. Let's take a look. But you can look at the schedule here on Twitch to see it. Yeah, Friday at 2 p.m. my time. When you look at this, you should see it in your time zone. Well, thank you, Diego. I appreciate it. I do my best to explain things for beginners, but maybe you can learn some English by hanging out here. But bienvenidos. Welcome. I don't know who we're gonna raid, but we might raid someone coding. I don't know. All right, we did the katas. We did that. We didn't do any of this. But yeah, in the meantime, join my mailing list if you haven't. The toughest kata I've completed is probably one of the 1Qs. You can look at this website that lists all of the ones I've solved, but 1Q is the hardest. Functional SQL. This one. So we implemented like a query function with like lots of chained functions on it. I actually implemented this one with TDD. Just because, like, the more complex ones really need a bunch of test cases. But, the answer doesn't look that complex. But that's probably one of the toughest ones I solved. The mailing list right now, if you sign up for live notifications, I just send out a live notification. But the main benefit of signing up on the mailing list is eventually when I release paid courses, you'll be the first to know about it. And it's really if you just want to support me. I don't spam you. I don't send you any ads. The only ads that I will send you will be for advertising of my own course content when I create it. Yeah. And Yop Stevie is saying they learned a lot of English watching this. That's good to know. Yeah. All right, I'm going to head out. Like I said, next stream is on Friday. Check out the stream schedule to see the time in your time zone. We're going to go on a raid. I don't know where, but if you are a sub, you can use that raid message. And if you're not a sub, you can use that raid message. Or you could come up with your own raid message or use that raid emote. Well, thank you, Rshd, RSHD. And that's it. That's all. Thank you all, everyone. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.